So yeah, just to introduce Christopher. So Christopher works at Google, and Christopher's going to talk to us today about building for accessibility and inclusion. So firstly, thank you so much, Christopher, for joining us. I know you are super busy, and you taking the time to be here today to speak to us, I think is just fantastic. So thank you.
It's my pleasure. Well, I know we have a short period of time, so I will talk quickly, but hopefully not too quickly. Let's see if Teams will let me share. Can you confirm that you see my screen? Lovely. Well, hello, my name is Christopher. I am the EMEA lead for accessibility and disability inclusion. This means I'm responsible for making sure all of Google's products are represented and we have an understanding of disability across Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. This is a short version of a deck that I normally give, so let's go. One question that I always get asked is, why does Google care about accessibility? And I think it's a reasonable question, but I'm lucky to be able to say that's actually part of our mission. The mission of Google is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. And what I mean universally accessible, it is about using the tricks and techniques and technologies that we invent to make the real world and the digital world accessible to all people, both on and off their device. And why is this important? It's important because there's over 1 billion people who are impacted by disability. Actually, looking at the recent numbers, it's probably closer to 1.2 billion. And this is the cohort of people who are self-identified as having a disability. There's the people who are not identified. They have a disability, but they don't identify with the community, either because they have some previous stigma or, like in my situation, I didn't realize I had a disability. It wasn't until I got involved in the work in accessibility that I sort of click all of the boxes and realized that I'm actually dyslexic. Just dyslexic enough to be annoying, not dyslexic enough to have called myself disabled, but it's certainly there. So I'm a part of that second cohort. Then there's friends and families and allies of people with disabilities. And there's, frankly, everybody in the world is going to have some kind of disability, be it situational, temporary, if you're lucky enough, age-related. So to design a product that works for everyone gives you an opportunity to create really delightful and innovative experiences. And you only do this with intent and action. So when it comes to building inclusively, I want to tell you a dirty secret. I've built products. I've been in the industry for 25 years. I spent 10 years at Apple making hardware, software, which were the first iTunes. I worked on the first iPod. I spent a couple of years at Sony Ericsson making phones. I spent a year at Disney making games. And I've been here at Google now for 10 years. And there's always a choice that has to get made. There's always going to be something that gets excluded because there's always going to be a constraint in your project. You're going to need the ability to focus to make a choice. But in those situations where accessibility isn't already part of what you do, it's important to think about this at the beginning. Incorporate it in the design, in the co-design, bring people into the community with you, hire people in the community to do the work, but take the initiative to make accessibility and inclusion part of what you do and keep it above that line. Keep it above the line of the things that you want to get done. Because if you don't, you're going to have a situation where your content isn't accessible. The reason I got into accessibility is because my product, when I was at Google Play Music, wasn't accessible. We had a test engineer came in, she turned on VoiceOver, and I heard button, 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 button. I asked, what's that? And she said, this is Google Play Music for someone who's blind. I said, well, that's stupid. How do they use it? And she says, well, that's why I'm here. And that was my introduction. Within a few months, I volunteered to take on accessibility as a 20%, and later became my day job. So if you don't plan, if you don't take the intention, you're going to have inaccessible content. If you design hardware, you can take a look at this old Samsung phone where you have the fingerprint sensor off on the right. It's bad for lefties. It's bad for photos because people kept on putting their finger on top of the camera sensor there. But with some planning, with some intention and cooperation, you can create accessible content. You can fix and centralize your fingerprint sensor. And what's interesting is by working with the community there, you can realize that the tactile surrounding of the tactileness around the camera sensor and the fingerprint sensor made it easier for everybody to find. Intentional inclusion is good for everyone. And when I talk about this, when I think about inclusion, there are three key methods that I use. One is leverage your strengths. Do what you're good at. I'm a musician by training. I'm a failed musician in reality, but I'm a musician by training. And what I've learned is if you want to play jazz, you don't start by playing jazz. You start by doing scales. You learn the techniques. You learn how to do it well. You learn how to improvise. You do something you're good at. So leverage your strengths. Think like a jazz musician. Then, once you know what you're doing, nothing about us without us. Always, always, always include the community that you're trying to support. Ask them questions, do the research, do the co-design, do the testing, make sure people are engaged in the problem. If you don't do this, you're not going to know what the problem is, and you're not going to know what the solutions are. And finally, if that just gets too scary, start with one person's problem. Start with one person's issue, build it, solve it, and then broaden out. Make it more robust, more robust, and more robust. And over time, you create a solution that really can support many, many, many people. So I'd like to talk about two innovations at Google that sort of demonstrate these ideas. One is a new project called Project Relate. It's not here in the UK yet. We're working on it, but this is it is a project that allows people to communicate who have atypical speech patterns. Speech ASR models, automatic software recognition models, don't work well today when people have atypical speech patterns like ALS, aphasia, or even a deaf accent. It's because the speech recognition data, the data that we use to create the machine models, they're often not inclusive enough. It's difficult to get valid, real data that is authoritative. But when you do the process, you take this raw, when you have the data, you'll take the raw audio data, you make the visual representation and labeling it so you know what we're looking for. You create the neural net, you put it in this big black box, and from there you get the real-time transcription. I'd like to show you just a quick video of what this can mean. And if you don't have audio, please let me know.
Yeah, we don't have audio there. No.
Humbug. Okay, so for the sake of time, we'll just continue. What Project Relate does, it is an application that allows a person on an Android phone to create their own personalized voice model. They're given a series of words and expressions that they read into it, and then they create a voice model that allows them to have what they say transcribed. So they can copy paste it into a different application. They can show it to someone with what they're trying to say. It will repeat it for you. Say you're in a face-to-face conversation, they can't understand what you're saying. You can say it into Relate, and you can have it repeat for you, sort of like a respeak. Or you could have it speak a command to your Alexa, for example, if they don't understand you. Finally, you can actually speak directly to your Google Assistant and actually have it do home tasks, play the music, turn on the lights, take a selfie. Really powerful things. And as more people do this, we're going to understand the needs of people with disabilities better, broader, and we can make our general voice models more robust so they help more and more people. The next thing is about captions. Captions at Google has been a rich history. We started automatic captions in English in YouTube in 2009, long time ago. And the most important thing we learn here is that it is better to have something than nothing. We knew it wasn't perfect, but the reaction of people being able to consume information that was completely inaccessible to them before was dramatic. The reaction was, it's not good, but it's far better than nothing. Since then, we've made it significantly better. We've increased the number of languages to about 13, and now the captions are what people expect to have. We added them into Google Slides and Google Hangouts, and in 2019, even before COVID, we actually added free English captions into Google Meet. And now today we have captions in 7 different languages, and now we're even starting to do translation. You can go from English into Spanish or French, Portuguese, or German. But what's really exciting to me is when you take it into the real world, we have an application called Live Transcribe and sound notifications. It takes the same ASR models and it allows you to have a real-time transcription in 80 different languages right there with you where you are in the real world. And if you choose not to speak, you can type your information back. Another thing we learned by working with the community is that it's really important to have a context of the world around you. So we can now give you a notification if someone is saying is your name, or if there's something happening around you, we can tell you what's there. Every one of these ideas came from someone in the community. because they recognize the value of having the language here, using the technology to create the awareness and solving people's problems. This is created by these two people, Dimitri and Chet. I would normally be showing you a video about them, but we're almost out of time and you can't even hear it, so I'm not going to do that. We then took this idea of captions and decided, you know, it's really cool to have a conversation, but there's a lot of information on your phone that you get every single day that people don't have access to. So we shrunk the voice model and put it on the device, and now we can have captions for any audio source on your phone, including phone. Oh, I can't even show you this video, including phone calls. So now you can have someone who is deaf actually use the phone, because you can. We started off with in about 2 years ago. We started off being able to have us read what the person was saying, and if the person was verbal, they could speak back. As of about 2 months ago, we updated this feature so that the person who you're speaking to can speak to you, and if you can't speak or you choose not to speak, we can use text-to-speech. So you're texting, essentially, and then we'll take this text, turn it into a voice, and send it back and forth. So you can have a real conversation with someone on the phone if you can't hear and if you choose not to speak. For me, this is the real powerful thing about the technology. It brings people together. It helps bridge the gap between what a person can do and what society or what technology was designed without thought. Technology can help bring these people together, can help solve these problems. And this is why I do what I do. So just a quick recap. And I'll put a link to this video because it's actually really quite a lovely video to give you a sense of how powerful it can be. To do successful inclusion, leverage your strengths. Do what you're good at. Think jazz. Nothing about us without us. Always, always, always include the people that you're trying to support. Start with one if it's too much. Start with one person. Start with one idea. Build it out. Make it more robust. But the most important thing is that you just get started. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. Thank you. And sorry everyone about the videos there, but as I said, we can share those later. But yeah, thank you so much. I had one question, if that's okay, Christopher. You mentioned about kind of getting started. I've asked this question before, but I think it's a good one. I think it's certainly applicable to your chat or to your talk. Sorry. So what's the key thing that you would do on a Monday morning if you were starting out with digital accessibility? I know you've kind of given some tips, but is there anything else that you could add to that? Or?
On a one-time basis or on a regular basis? It's
so
slightly different.
The very first thing, I guess.
The very first thing is use empathy to understand where you want to work, where you want to look at, and then use your experience, like your technical chops, to understand where you think you might be able to have an impact. But then call someone who actually is part of that community. Because for me, the metaphor I use, empathy will get you to about 5,000 feet if you're looking at a map. But working with someone who's living with a disability can tell you exactly where the problem is, how you solve it, and where to go from here. So the granularity when you're on the ground is really different than when you have empathy only.
Absolutely. I guess, yeah, pick up the phone or walk into the next office and ask someone that's doing it. It's, I think we should all be doing that more, and that's kind of why we put these webinars on in the first place, so we can share that. But yeah, thank you so much. Unfortunately, we have run to time, so we're going to have to stop there. But there may be a couple of questions in the chat, but I think everyone was just really great.
I can save about 10 more minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.